your courses. So that is great. And I believe that we're supposed to start at 9 o'clock. So I am one of those individuals who believes in starting on time. Sometimes in our organizations, that doesn't happen. But I do want to be mindful of your valuable time and your willingness to be in this space with us. So we'll go ahead and get started. Like I said before, everyone, please stay muted. For those of you who are on the phone and you want to talk, you'll have to unmute yourself on that, and you can do that. So, like I see, Brenda is on the phone, as well as see who else is on the phone. Looks like Gwen Pike is just on audio. Okay, cool. Yeah, so there's someone with 9197. I don't know what your name is. So if you can make sure that you show up in the put your name in the chat room so you can get credit for that. There are other people who have like there's BLC15. Again, I won't know who you are unless you put your full name in the chat room. So I don't need to know who you are on the. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi there. They're both me, Brett Carlson, and I put my name in the chat room.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I just want to make sure you get credit. Sweet. Love it, love it, love it. And again, I want to say before we get started, I'm so thankful that that you all are being flexible with us in how we present this. As you know, we are in, hey, Andrew Austin, good to see you, bud. We're in a new normal. So thank you for allowing us to do this with that in mind. So, yay, I'm glad friends are here. So, and because I am at Mayo, I'm at work. So I put my badge on. I don't know about the rest of you, but there are these psychological things that I have to do to kind of stay engaged with the work. And part of that is getting dressed in the morning, shaving, putting on Mayo-esque clothes, and then putting on my badge. And my family laughs at me because when I come on, I have my badge on from time to time. And they're like, there's no need for that. But for my own sanity and psychology, I do that because that puts me in the mood for doing this work. So one more thing before we get started. Well, there's a few more things. I'll show you some of the tools that are in Zoom. I'm not sure how familiar people are with Zoom, so we'll use some of the tools in here. So we'll get to some of those tools right now. It's now 5 after. We have 27 people in. We had a bit more sign up, so we'll see if those brothers and sisters come. But the room seems to be pretty stable today. So we'll go through some of the tools. So I'm gonna move this off to the side a little bit, and we'll go to our next slide. So on this slide, and this may show at the bottom or at the top, depending on how your screen is set up. But this is a slide really showing the annotation tools that are available to you. And so if you hit View Options, there'll be a drop-down menu. You can hit Annotate, and then you'll find yourself with tools like this on the screen that you can use. And so if you have found that annotation tool, if you can just hit yes, and it'll show up right here on this screen. So just hit yes, click yes. For those of you who have found that annotation tool. Yes. Yep. Oh, so I see lots of check marks of the yes. Good, good, good. Good, good. All right. So I'll clear those in just a second, but I want to move on to our next slide, which is other annotation tools. And so you can add words, you can add text to the screen. Like someone added the word yes earlier. So there are those. What I'd like for you to do now is to use that eraser tool and erase your check marks. So some people are typing in hello. Yeah, great. So you can type in hello. You can use that tool. But now if you could go ahead and erase your check marks, that would be great. And so for some of us who've done WebEx, this is very similar to how we operate in WebEx. So it's not very different at all. Good. I still see some checks there, but we'll have those go away in just a second. So as most of you know, my name is Andre Koen, and I am the program director for the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And I've been here almost 2 years now. That's amazing. Time really flies. And so my counterpart, my partner today is JP Fun. And JP, can you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your role? JP, you are muted. So if you can hit your space bar to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Hello, this is JP. I am senior instructional designer. I have been with Mayo for over 13 years, working with workforce learning, doing some instructional design, online program, stuff like that. That's
Cool.
all.
Great, thank you. All right. So again, if you can keep yourself muted, that would be wonderful. And when you want to speak, just hit your space bar. It will unmute you, but then you can go back to being muted. So we will watch that because we know that people are at home. Many people are at home, and there are things that we can't control. I do think it's important to recognize the difference between working from home, which is what some of us do on a regular basis, but then being in a crisis and working, right? So right now, in a crisis and we're working, and so being able to surround yourself in a working space is important. That we recognize those differences. And so I'm so glad you are all here. And I'm an extrovert, so my family is like really glad that you all are here with me too. So let's go ahead and go through the rest of our presentation. So we want to talk a lot about this concept of an inclusive leader. And so what JP and I have really tried to, we've tried to research a lot of things. We looked at not only our Mayo values, but what actually is happening out in the marketplace, and what is it that the world demands. And so what we've kind of come up with is that there are these 5 components of inclusive leadership, or these 5 skills that we'll share part of those today with you, and we'll do other parts with you as we continue. But these are 5 principles that you can use to become an effective leader. And so you can use this as a supervisor. You can use this as a hiring manager. You can use this as as a good employee, right? So wherever you are, you can use these five principles to build this inclusive environment that we're really trying to strive for. Because we recognize when we're all doing our best and we're all hitting all cylinders, that is when the needs of the patient are actually realized, right? So we know that they come first, but we also want to realize those, and so that's why we've come up with this inclusive leadership program. And again, thank you for joining. So here are the five aspects of inclusive leadership. And first is the inclusive mindset. Second is cultural competence and agility, and we'll talk about how those are different because I'm sure folks that have been exposed to cultural competence, but we also want to talk about the agility of being culturally competent. Greater adaptability, it should be pretty obvious why we're looking at greater adaptability, being aware of unconscious bias, and finally, creating a sense of belonging. So how do we create a sense of belonging? And so the overall objectives are pretty clear, that by the end of this program, we are qualities with examples, right? So you can use those examples, and we have pragmatic ways of approaching those, identifying the difference between inclusive leaders and exclusive leaders, and applying some of the best practices to inclusive leadership. So when we talk about, before we even talk about inclusivity, I really want to talk about this idea of diversity. And with your annotation tool, and there's a lot of us in the room, so I recognize that this will be a little bit messy. But what I'd like for you to do is, under diversity, just type in ways in which shapes are similar. What are some ways in which these shapes are similar? So if you can use your annotation tool and just type in how some of these shapes are similar, or you can use the chat room, right? So they have a blue color. They're relatively the same size. They're all shapes. They all have closed spaces. They're blue. They're outlined. They all have sides. Yep, they all have sides, right? They're self-contained. All right, great. The sides are different. They have angles and corners. All right. The number of, I see some. Good angle. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Our common differences. When we look at these shapes, they're also very similar. And so they are very, very similar. And so diversity is that recognition of both of those things. So what I'd like for you to do next, and this is going to be easy. So just so you know, it's going to be, and I'll clear the slides. What I want you to do, picture of these Dallas buildings, is I want you to circle where you see these inclusion. So in this picture, where do you see either forms of these shapes or inclusiveness of the shapes, and then just circle those on the screen. Wonderful. All right, you can stop right there. Can someone just, you all are very smart and intelligent, and I appreciate your participation in this. Can someone tell me what is the difference between diversity and inclusion, or not even difference, or what is their relationship? Feel free to speak.
Oh, can we have people typing in the chat room? Because
Yep, they can chat.
There's, overlapping. I just couldn't read it.
Yep. So what are people's thoughts? You can type that in the chat room.
Dance versus being asked to dance. Great. It's like a tango, but still dancing together.
Good.
Versus different people, inclusions using those different people's talents and skills. Great points.
Wonderful. All right, so I'm going to keep going, JP.
Yeah, being included and not excluded, differences coming together to make one. All
right. So each of those shapes find themselves in this inclusion model. This picture of buildings in Dallas, right? So this is so diversity is these commonalities and differences. Inclusion is being able to maximize those differences and commonalities. So we want to hear from Dr. Peter Kalina about the difference between diversity and inclusion. And some of you may have seen the video because we sent it out in a link prior to, but I'd like to just play that for us right now.
Let's start with a few simple basic definitions of diversity and inclusion.
I couldn't hear it.
Who's actually on the team, while inclusion is who gets to play. Diversity.
Andre, can you hear? Can other people hear it? I couldn't.
Sure that each head actually counts.
I cannot hear it either.
All right, one moment.
Is being invited to the.
One moment. So I will, so the video is here and it is playing. I can hear it. I'm not sure why you can't, but we'll just move on. So what Dr. Kalina is sharing here is that diversity, it's the difference between being invited to a party and then inclusion is being asked to dance. And I would say that the next step in that would be equity, which is, are we playing the music that allows people to dance, right? That encourages people's participation. And so when we simply think about diversity and inclusion, it really is as simple as, counting numbers versus having each person count, right? Unique differences, but seeking out those experiences to maximize our ability to work together. And again, the last part is receiving an invitation to the party versus being asked to dance. So why is it that we need inclusive leaders? And so in the chat room, I want you to answer that question. So type in the chat room, why do you think we need inclusive leaders? Why is that important?
Modeling behavior, staff engagement. Teamwork, team stronger, individual, okay, to get a good advantage of everyone's strength, yes, to ensure Mayo is the best it can be,
Wonderful.
to harness good morals at the workplace, including leaders. An inclusive leader allows everyone to add to the pool of knowledge and to arrive at the best process, leverage diverse talents and perspective. Is we all have the unique diverse staff. Sure, our job is to work to reach all of them so they can share many different voices, expressions from others in one message.
All right. So, an inclusive leader is a leader who creates a welcoming environment by acknowledging each individual's unique self and perspective and making everyone feel valued, accepted, and included. So that is how at Mayo we are defining inclusive leaders. We know that there are many definitions that people go to or ideologies or thought process that people go to, but this is how we're looking at inclusive leadership at Mayo Clinic. And so, with that, I want to give. So I want to make sure that this audio is working. So let me.
Andre and JP, thank you for.
Can you hear that?
Nope.
Okay. Let me exit this in just a second, and we will go. All right. So now let me present this. One moment, let me go back up here. And we will reopen it. So I'm going to add this right into the chat room, the link to the video. And so what I'd like for you to do is to
some suggestions, you may need to use your computer speakers and let the mic pick up from computer audio.
Yep. So let's do this. So just click on that link. It's a YouTube link. It's a 2-minute video. We'll give about 2 minutes for folks to watch that, and then we'll come back and have conversations. All right. So we'll set a timer now for 2 minutes. Click on that link in the chat room. Watch that video, and we'll come back for some more conversations. So we'll come back at 2:27. All right. So it looks like people are done. So let's talk to the chat room just for a second. What were some of the challenges that you think were faced in that situation? Oh, no. First, let's back up. How realistic was that situation? So first, put that in the chat room. So how realistic was the situation presented in this scenario? Very realistic, happens a lot, pretty real, yep. Scenario was realistic, a clash of different leadership styles, realistic, happens a lot. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So JP, help walk us through this scenario a little bit. What are some of the key things we should be thinking about as we look at or think about this particular scenario?
Yes. First of all, let everybody know that's the real case happened at the Mayo Clinic. Certainly, I changed the name and the department, whatever. However, I want people. First of all, people have pointed out what's the real root cause of this conflicts there. Can you write something in the chat room? What's the real root problem that causes this conflicts?
So gender is a conflict, okay. Lack of openness to communication. Different leadership styles.
Really?
Supervisor couldn't give up control, a lack of trust, expectations of settings,
Yes.
Power play, lack of inclusivity, expectations, unable to follow our 5 safe behaviors. Thank you. Who said that? I need to see who said that.
Yes.
You get extra
Very
bonus points. One way or the highway, right?
It's really the micromanagement style. People point out unable to follow 5 safety behaviors. Also, the big thing somebody pointed out, lack of a trust.
Yep, and insecurity. So I would also, if I can just add a couple too, right? So oftentimes there's more than one side to a story, and so it is important that we look at how to be effective versus just being right. So because I when I spend time with learners, part of their challenge is sometimes they are right, but they want to figure out how can they be effective, because sometimes they feel like the fate of their participation is deeply rooted in how that supervisor will grade them. So if the supervisor is doing something that's inappropriate or wrong, challenging them on that could be difficult, right? So there is this idea that you have to figure out how to be right versus effective. And in this role, I don't think I think we can argue where that effectiveness lies, or how effective people were on both sides, if you will, in getting their needs met. But we do want to talk about inclusive leaders. So go ahead, JP.
Okay, and let's can we move on to